Alright guys, today we're going to be fixing an iPhone 11 that, as you can tell, is pretty damaged. This has a lot of screen issues. Nobody can use the phone, so we're going to be replacing this screen. Anybody can do this repair. It's not hard at all. It's super easy as long as you have the right tools, and most importantly, if you take your time and go slow. The first thing you want to do is make sure you buy the right screen, and you want to check your connections. So I know the connections are on this right side of this iPhone 11, so I know when I'm taking off the LCD that I need to go slowly. Here's a few of the tools you're going to need. The first one is going to be this Penelope screwdriver. I will leave a link in the description to all these tools. A tri-wing screwdriver, or I just call it a Y screwdriver. I need some anti-static tweezers. Don't use regular tweezers. An iSesamo or some kind of pry tool, and a small Phillips screwdriver. And like I said, I'll leave a link in the description to all the tools. The first thing you want to do, just like with every single iPhone before this, is you want to remove the two Penelope screws at the bottom. You do have to have this special screwdriver. It comes in a lot of kits, but you do have to have it to open those screws at the bottom. And then you want to go around the sides. This video has been sped up, so take your time, slow it down. You don't want to rush anything. Just remember those cables are on the kind of more to the bottom right side of this phone. So when you're prying, make sure you don't pry too deep. But if you do, it's not going to be too big of an issue because you're replacing the LCD anyways. But just on that right-hand side, just go a little bit slower when you're prying up. But I usually start at the bottom, but if you have any kind of gaps, start in the gap and pull out. Some of them are a little bit harder than others, some are easy. But when you do finally get it where you can kind of maneuver it and get in there and you've gone all the way around and get all that adhesive out of the way, you're going to want to pry this open like a book, basically from left to right. And once you pry it open, don't go past 90 degrees. That cable at the far left, it's important and you might break it. You want to start by removing the 5 screws on this shield right here, and you use the tri-wing screwdriver. There's going to be 5 of them. And make sure when you lay them out just the way that you took them out. It'll make it a lot easier when you're putting them back. So you see those 2 cables right there. One's an LCD cable and one's a digitizer cable. You want to go ahead and disconnect those cables. And I always like to disconnect the battery. I try to do it if we can right off the bat, but with this iPhone 11, you have to disconnect the 2 cables on top and then use your tri-wing screwdriver and remove these 3 screws that are on this L-shaped bracket. And these are all tri-wing screws as well. And like I said, when you're laying them out, just try to lay them out exactly the way that you took it out. And lay these brackets right next to them so it'll make it super easy when we're putting this back together. So we're going to disconnect the battery. And I usually like to do this first, but on this iPhone 11, you can't access it first. And then now we want to disconnect your front camera mic cable. And once you do that, I mean, the screen is off. These newer iPhones, in my opinion, are a lot easier to remove than the old ones. This top part right here, you're going to want to take your Phillips screwdriver. There's 3 Phillips screws on this right-hand side. And once again, they're different size screws, so make sure that when you lay them out, you're laying them out correctly, or when you put them back, you could cause damage. There's one little tiny screw at the top. It's a tri-wing screwdriver. They like to mix different screws to make it harder to take apart, but it's really not. So you want to fold that cable down. And I kind of got in here a little too close with my camera, but there's a little piece at the top that you want to basically pry loose. And when you pry it loose, I'm trying to see where you can see how thick it is at the top. You want to make sure you get behind that and not cut it in half or anything. So you want to pry on that. And there's a little adapter at the top, and I'm going to show you that adapter in slow motion here in just a second. It's kind of like a little shield. So right there at the top, you see that little gold plate. It's right there. It's basically just like a little shield that helps hold it down. I had to get that off to remove it, and I didn't show that in the video prior. So just make sure you lift up that little shield right there, and it should just come right off. And once that comes off, the other part's a lot easier to get out. But I'm basically doing everything in reverse order now. So I'm pushing this little plate back into its spot once I've put the front camera and mic back in. And I just want to make sure that it fits flush. But I was trying to slow that down just to show you what that bracket looks like, because I missed it in the other part. So the bracket's in. I'm just making sure everything fits down flush, solid. And then right now I'm trying to line up the screw holes and make sure that nothing looks like it's too far apart from each other, or like a screw, when you screw it in, is not going to fit or anything. And everything right here looks pretty good. So we're just going in reverse order. We're going to put take our Phillips screwdriver and put our 3 screws back in. Once we put our 3 screws back in, we're going to grab our Y screwdriver, our tri-wing screwdriver, and we're going to screw that little bitty screw in at the very top. And if you need to, you can slow this video down. It's sped up a little bit just to kind of so you get to the point of it. But take your time, pause the video, don't rush. It's the only time I ever see anybody mess up is when you rush. It's not a hard repair at all. So we're gonna take these cables and we're gonna put them back in the exact same spot we pulled them out from. So you want to connect the battery, you want to connect these 2 cables, and I always like to connect the battery last, so I went under these cables and did it. But I connected all the cables, and we basically just want to test this phone out before we start putting down the plates and the screws and all that, to make sure that the phone functions the way that it should. And I had to pull out those 2 cables and then put the battery down to make this work. So just a heads up, I want to put the battery connector first and then the LCD and digitizer. We're going to go ahead and power this iPhone on. And sometimes you get the passcode, sometimes you don't. So if you don't have the passcode, you can swipe up on the phone and click emergency, and then just type 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 #0. You want to make sure that everything you touch, the right thing comes up on the screen. And if it does, then everything is connected and it should be fine. You can do a phone call test if you want to, because you mess with that front mic at the top. So you can always have them call you, or you can call them, make sure they can hear you and you can hear them. That's just an extra step. But I've had no problems with these newer iPhones having any kind of issues. The camera's at a bad angle, so I apologize. I was focused on getting this done in a timely manner. But you're going to take that L-shaped bracket that you put, and you're going to want to put the 3 tri-ring screws back. But before you do that, you want to make sure that that battery connector is connected and it's down. Once you do that, you're going to connect your LCD and your digitizer. Those are the 2 cables on the top. And then you're going to want to grab your shield over here in a minute that's right there on the right side. And you want to grab that shield and lay it on top. And if you just line it up with the screw holes, there's 5 screw holes, and if you've laid out your screws correctly, you can just put those back the way that they're laid out, and it makes it super simple. Like I said, this repair is not hard whatsoever. Anybody can do it. You just got to make sure you take your time and your patience. But I did speed up this video in bits and pieces just to get through it. But it's maybe takes about 30-45 minutes at the most, and that's if you are taking your time and doing it correctly. When you're putting this in at the end, you want to make sure you push on the bottom of the screen towards the top of the phone. That helps it sit in just right. And the last thing you need to do is just put in your last 2 pentalobe screws, and that's it. This iPhone 11 is done. You can turn it on and once again go through your test, do the emergency test, check your numbers, all that. You can make a phone call if you want to. But other than that, I mean, all you did was replace the screen. So hopefully this helped you out. Like I said, anybody can do it. If this helped you in any way, please let me know. Thank you.